windshield for you guys. I want you guys to at least be able to possibly enjoy some of this. Yeah, Baron Coleman's live right now, and I was thinking I better tune into that, and then I'm like, wait a minute. There's one or two people in the world that might want to see where old Grind King's driving down. Yeah, you know why? Oh. So what would it have been, about 1997, 98, when I had to create my first email account? You know, I don't know if I've ever grown up. It's pretty obvious I probably haven't, but I'm always in such a hurry to do things that I don't like. And sitting in an office somewhere, creating an email account. Like, I think about all my friends where they are right now. They're all either like jumping off a cliff into the river, doing some kayaking or skateboarding or something. And then I'm like, yeah, an email. What is this even going to be for? Because I didn't have the, I hadn't cultivated the big brother eyes always watching you kind of, you know, it didn't occur to me that an email is a great way for everyone to log data into this evil system that will be soon taking over the world. And, you know, also verify everything you buy. I mean, your email really is what connects you to, you know, to verify who you are and all your accounts and everything. So didn't really see that angle back then, but I'm sure they knew exactly what they were doing, you know. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pass this guy. I don't really want to have to do it, but let me show you how real truck drivers go downhill. It's not that I really want to do it like that, but it, you know, I'm not gonna burn my brakes up trying to stay behind that guy. If I'm gonna burn my brakes up, it's gonna be after trying to see down Dolly Parton's shirt. When I was a kid, Dolly Parton was like the finest thing pretty much on planet Earth. And one of the first jokes I ever heard in elementary school was if you take like your pointing finger and then you take, anyway, you basically, you make it look like Dolly Parton standing behind a telephone pole with her big boobs hanging out. And yeah, you know, it was perfectly fine for us in kindergarten. So I'm sure that a kindergarten joke should not violate any community guidelines. I should hope not, for Lord's sake. Has it gotten that bad? Has it gotten that bad? Probably has, guys, probably has. The only reason censorship exists is so that people who do things wrong can continue to do things wrong. There's literally no other reason. If you want to, you know, eliminate some competition that, you know, is coming up after your company or something, and they're advertising on one of the, you know, the same platforms as you, if you can get them censored, then, you know, that's your advantage. That's wrong. If you are blowing up pre-adult life forms on another continent with weapons that took a lot of engineering to accomplish, and money and resources from your citizens, and you have to censor people talking about it on every single platform, then it's probably wrong. Just saying, probably. That's why censorship exists. and they make it sound like, hey, oh my gosh, these online chat rooms sure have gotten out of hand. Oh my Lord, have you been on 4chan lately? We've got to put a stop to this. We can't have you scrolling across a post about, a turd someone dropped last night or something. That's a pale too far. And in the meanwhile, there's a school, 4 little girls exploding on fire. And that's just what we heard, That's just what they got exposed. But I mean, that's the name of the game. I was listening to Professor Shang this morning, and his channel is called Predictive History, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not a huge. I'm never going to be great at plugging people's. If I don't mean any disrespect, but I don't think enough people watch my channel that it would even matter in the slightest. But it is important that everyone become as close to like me as possible and have the same opinion as me, And conveniently enough, ironically enough, let me tell you how great that has worked out for me and my relationship with YouTube. We see eye to eye on nearly everything. Like, I have the best friends up there. When they occasionally have to do something related to one of my videos, they are eager to help me. Eager. Because they know that our morals and our motivations and the vision for what YouTube is we are on point. We are all dialed in. We are seeking the plan. But the community guidelines are probably pretty easy to violate, especially when you're someone as careless as I am with, I truly don't have a bad bone in my body for anyone other than people that are, actively trying to make things worse for everyone. I do burn quite considerably for how easily the elites can just brush off the amount of suffering that is taking place in the world that they are causing. I don't think that they will ever see it any other way. Isn't that crazy? I've never met a poor average person that just, I don't know anymore, guys. I'm kind of tired. Last night, I should have been able to just get the most restful sleep ever, but my fence that I built, I bought the wire fencing from Big R, and I've had pretty good luck with it. I have a fence that's probably that goes around at least 1 acre. And so a couple years ago when I bought my first 4 or 5 rolls, the rolls are about 100 yards each, and it costs about $149 or $169 for a roll. And this year I had to buy a little bit shorter fence, not shorter as in the roll, but shorter as in how tall the fence is. The other one was 5 foot tall, and this one's 4 foot. And it was still, $150 or so. And I spent the day installing it, and as I got to the last roll, I noticed the welds just weren't, it was not very strong. needless to say, the dogs exploited that. And there's nothing quite like a well-meaning neighbor to find some pieces of wood that are just random and just kind of cram them in the fence and make it look like Sanford and Son out there. I'm not saying that my house is that nice. It's quite not nice, to be honest with you. But I know that it is a quality house, and when I build my fence, I build it straight. I break out the string line, and I space all my posts out evenly, 10 foot, and I make my gate nice and level, and everything is straight and looking decent. And then there's a twisty, turny, bunch of junk, other pieces of fence that he found somewhere, and then all these pieces of wood. I'm just like, yeah. So it did take. I don't have a fence puller, that tightens, a fence stretcher. But I found a new technique to do it, and it is, a little bit tedious, but the job is well done, ladies and gentlemen. But that's why I couldn't sleep, because I woke up, my right arm kept falling asleep, and it was waking me up. So I just got up at 5, went to sleep at 1:30 or 2, and here we are. And then right when I start driving, I'm falling asleep behind the wheel. I'm like, oh, great. I haven't found a good use for dog poop yet, other than that female that owes me $300. She might get some of it. But if anyone knows, I don't think it would be good for fertilizer. I mean, it might be, I don't know. It's not cow shit, that's for sure. But I accumulate quite a bit of it, I will tell you that. I think, there's a part of me that really wants to do that, to just drive by, and she usually leaves her front door open when it's nice out, and just, take a 5-gallon bucket full of it, get it nice and wet, and just freaking sling it in on her freaking kitchen table or something. That's $300 worth, $300 is, it's not what it used to be. Like in the 80s, it would be like $1,000 today, I guess, but, $300 is a day's work. And just so blatantly could not be in any sense rational. It's like the eyes glaze over when you ever have a friend that, he's like a really cool guy, and you go out drinking, and then he just keeps taking these shots, and you're like, bro, that's quite a lot of shots. And the eyes glaze over, and next thing you know, he's just somebody else. And you are at the club with him, and it's the first time you've ever been over to his new house on where his mom, the neighborhood his mom lives in, and you're going to take a taxi home, and you get in the taxi, and your friend can't even remember what his address is, and you've never been there before because you live in California and this is Georgia, and you're just like, Jack, where do you live, buddy? What's your address? Do you have your ID on you? And then he gets naked and walks into his female neighbor's apartment, and is searching around through her refrigerator and stuff. And this is just one of many, many, many instances. The guy who in Ocean Beach, San Diego, in the wintertime, there are days where the waves are just unbelievably epic. I'm talking 30-foot swell coming in, south swell, or north swell rather, and they're literally going over the pier headed south. Normally the waves kind of are pushing up towards the north. Wait, when you say, when the waves are north waves are coming from the north, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong here, guys. I haven't been surfing in probably almost 7 years or so now. But I believe that when it's coming out of the north, it's like what it says, it's coming out of the north. Anyway, so we got this video of Jack, Mr. Walk Around Naked guy, dropping in on this fucking like 30-foot beast, bro. And right when he gets to the bottom of the transition and he's making his bottom turn, his like the front of his board just snaps off and he just goes dumped under. And we're like, oh shit. And but he was a rescue swimmer for the Navy. He like jumped out of helicopters and stuff like that. So this was right around Hurricane. This was the year before Hurricane Katrina, I believe. And so this, you know, he goes under, and then the wave is, you know, starts to break, and you can't see him, and then it takes a good like probably 45 seconds before you're able to see beyond that wave again. And lo and behold, you see a jet ski with Jack holding both pieces of his broken board in his hand, just holding onto the jet ski, and the lifeguard got him, brought him in. The guy's a savage. The guy, okay man, I'm gonna talk some shit on Jack tonight, I guess. Love you, Jack. This guy made my life a living misery for a couple of years sometimes. He was like your friend. He was like my friend, but then, you know, he was like just so young. So I think I was like 28 and he was probably like 20, and he was a maniac. But I'll never forget dude, this guy would never wash his feet, bro, I guess. Like, he had those like leather flip-flops, I can't remember if they were like rainbows or something, and they would just have this permanent odor that it really takes effort to get to this odor. And I don't think he realized it. And then, we'd be sitting there, we'd have like church groups and stuff at our house. Our roommates were super into church, and we'd have like 40 people in our little 2-bedroom apartment, and Jack's sitting there with his feet just like blang, dude. And he ended up, I always tell him, like, Jack, bro, that what is on your feet is going to end up everywhere else on you. I mean, you can't just like expect it to stay there. And then I don't want it, But he got in something happened. Maybe he got in an accident in his Jeep, and when he went to the hospital, he ended up getting pretty bad infection when they operated on his leg. And that's the first thing I thought of. I mean, I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but I was like, well, you never wash those damn feet, man. It's probably feet germs inside there, bro. Oh man, he almost lost his leg. Man. But it doesn't matter what subject I talk about, like, it always will end up back to the core of what is important in life. And I'll tell you, I mean, you tell me, if you're someone who wants to optimize and have the best life that you can for yourself, you've got a plan, you're a good looking person, and you got you got a beautiful wife, and you got kids on the way or whatever, and everything's just great. But, you need to know who to watch out for in the world, don't you? You need to know who the big bad wolf is, and you need to know who signs your checks. I'm sure you've got that figured out by now, but do you know how all that money works? And, it's, if really get down into the nuts and bolts of it, talking about my friend Jack here, the military is the arm it's one of the arms of the evil parasite network that has just been having its will with the planet Earth for a long time. And whatever they did to my friend Jack while he was in there, they did something to his brain, man, because he's out there now. Like, he is seriously thinks he's Jesus, and oh man. Sometimes he'll be sane, sometimes he won't be. I don't know if he's still drinking a lot or not, but the Crown Royal, definitely flip the switch once you get to a certain amount. And I know for a fact that they run all kinds of experiments on every different person in the army and the military. I mean, at this point, we should all know that by now. They're running experiments on all of us. So think about when you sign up for them, what you're signing your life away to. Nowadays, you might even find that you're signing yourself up to do experiments just when you go to the dentist. They will inject you with things that are experimental, that is perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. In another episode, I will get the name of the. It's a law or some kind of a, whatever goes. There's some kind of a bill, and in that bill, this was in there, and it's some kind of section of the bill, section 44 or something, dash whatever, and it allows for the experimentation against a citizen's knowledge, as long as it is within reasonable natural circumstances, the outcomes. And it's like, well, death is kind of a natural circumstance, it's eerily vague. But the gentleman who, I brought my iPad and my laptop with me on this trip, so once I get to Vegas here, I'm going to try to set something up to where I can have some playback and some possible better angles, multiple angles, and but it would be cool to have some playback and some voice, when I'm talking about one of these subjects. I could easily have the actual footage of it, and as long as it's fair use and whatnot. It would make this experience better. It's nice to talk to someone while I'm on the road, I will say that. I got a lot to say, but there's just nobody with the power I need to hear me. I don't think, man. I can't fix this world. It seems like it's not okay what is happening. I mean, I don't see how anyone could agree to make it legal to do secret nano robot experiments on its citizens in this day and age. And yet, in the newspapers and on TV, we're just the A-team, and we're, the land of the free, the home of the brave, hugging flags, saying no to drugs and yes to abortions. Yeah, what? Oh shit. Well, that's my water jug. Yeah, so the seats in this truck do not have any kind of a, there's usually like a leather kind of accordion thing to protect you from getting everything pinched and cut off. Because it's basically an accordion spring that goes up and down every bump you hit. my dog likes to lay with her head like right there. I'm like, if I hit a big bump, I'm just gonna like, I'm gonna crush your head. I'm crushing your head. And you ever see kids in the hall, I'm crushing your head? I don't know why that popped into my head. And, yeah, we're all having fun. I'm not sure what town this is. This is Pagosa Springs. Pagosa. Oh shoot! I'm sorry, man. What do we do here, man? Jesus Christ! I don't think you're. Looks good. You got it. Looks good. Yeah, you got it, bro. You're good. All day, man. Looks terrific. Looks terrific. I don't know if that's supposed to be a light for me or what, but I ain't staying here to find out. I would love to know if I actually am the record holder for the person who, since he was born, ran the most stoplights and stop signs. I have never stopped at a stop sign on my skateboard. I don't think even once. And it made me a pretty good driver, I will tell you that. If you want your kids to learn how to drive, move to a busy neighborhood, give them a skateboard and no money, and lock them out of the house all day till it's dark. That would be my suggestion. It would be a damn good driver. So did you guys see the Drewski, Erica Kirk? How in the world is that guy able to pull that off? That's so cool. It's been made clear that their ability to make costumes and masks so lifelike that you would never even know that you're talking to someone else. It's kind of scary, huh? Somebody in the government has had an absolute obsession with dressing up like, they've always been trannies in the damn government, I guess. J. Edgar Hoover from, this is the whole, whatever. We can get into it. This episode is brought to you by, hi, I'm David, and I've got the David's School for Learning How to Not Be a Satan Worshiper. We started off the day by anybody who wants to hurt children and that kind of stuff. I don't understand it. Watching Professor Zhang break down, like, from the Sumerians and the Babylonians, I keep going through this episode and I still am not around a pen or a paper so I can kind of jot it down and really study it so I don't forget the order, the timeline of how it all comes to be. But basically, there are these power struggles between, I guess, Rome comes from Assyrian, maybe it was Akkadian, shit, well, not that it matters, like, you can really tell the difference. If you out there in the audience are offended that I mixed up Akkadian with Assyrian, you, sir, are the type of person I actually am trying to study to be, because I would like to know the differences between these cultures But the Roman culture originated in these more ancient, I believe it is the Assyrians that were the ruthless, just what do you call it when you're all about the flesh, just the sex, the orgies, the alcohol, the living in excess, and the extreme rock and rollness. Like, I guess it's rock and roll as fuck. I think that being Assyrian is like original rock and roll. Some of the most original rock and roll. And here's how I see it. All right, so you've been created by these alien gods who are running a really tight operation here on the planet. They've built some really nice buildings that are just incredibly never going anywhere, and they've laid out the entire truth that we are allowed to know for everyone to see. Many of the buildings actually tell the story itself, so nothing's really obscure or hidden about who you are and what this is. And then the gods, they transition. They need to go somewhere else, or for whatever reason, and they have quarrels amongst the gods, the aliens, right? And you being an established city that, or people that were put in place to refine and smelt and make bronze, to smelt tin and to get the 12 or 13% ratio between the copper and the tin to make the bronze. But then the gods leave and you don't really have anything else to do. I would imagine a really good company that has like some really high quality workers, and then all of a sudden the company just shuts down, but they don't ever lock the doors or take any of their computers or desks away. They just leave it open, so everyone's still there hanging out, complaining. Some of them are complaining, some of them are like just going ape shit with all the equipment and doing their own experiments and shit. Like, that's probably Assyria. And that is right around the time when shit is going bad in certain places. Inanna got, she got to rule over a lot of that area in the further east, if I'm not mistaken. And she was not exactly the most just and efficient ruler for her people. So who knows what happened there. She was pretty ruthless in her own right. She mastered all martial arts after her beloved Dumuzi was killed. When AI first came out, that you could start asking it questions and you could ask it to generate images for you, the first thing I asked it was to generate an image of Enki and Marduk hearing the news that Dumuzi had died. And the image that it made for me was very curious. And I could probably dig it up. I hope that I can. It was, I think it was on, oh shit, what's the website that, the Discord. And I forget what version of the AI it was at that point, but you know how that one makes everything in these like triangular kind of shapes? I don't know if that really is the right thing to describe it. That's how I'm remembering it, but it was pretty fucking cool, man. Like, you couldn't really make out any of the features of them, defining them as being Anunnaki, but I would like to know, reach back into the log of that exchange and see what resources the computer used to pick its images from. Like I wonder what source material it was able to gather from. I am so glad that I went this way, man. Like the last trip to Vegas takes us down this highway that is just beat to hell, and it just rattles and shakes and swerves left and right the whole damn time. This has been pretty nice. I'll drive slow through these mountains any day of the week versus that again. But you can start putting the whole Inky, Nibiru, and alien thing like in the facts filing cabinet in your mind. You can start viewing the world through the lens of that is real and that actually happened. It really did, and it really is happening still. My mom asked me, if there was aliens, where are they? Why can't we see them? Well, how hard do you try to keep all the ants out of your house, Motherfuckers don't need to be around us. But Inky always was such a dispositioned guy, man. That's how I view him. He wrote the book though, so who knows? But this is just not what I don't get the vibe that he was the bad guy. I don't get the vibe that he was the antagonist to humans. He was the protagonist for sure. Absolutely. He is the one that saved Ziusudra from the flood. And apparently we are all children of that experience. Now, it is to be noted that it wasn't just Ziusudra, his wife and family. It was also the boatman, some of the help, and there was definitely. It's not how the Bible made it sound, like there was only two people, and then all of a sudden everyone's, it wasn't like that. And apparently, Quetzalcoatl, aka Ningushita, was over on the South American continent doing similar deeds, because there are survivors in the South American culture from the flood, and he was over there. Hey, you know what? Oh my goodness, I just got the subject for today's video. We are going to talk about time. Now, there's earthly time. Bank of America. Of course my balance is low. Bank of America? Who do you think I am? You have my last name right there. It's not Rothschild, bro. So, time. Now, what would the differences be in time here on Earth? Well, you got the difference between you and your house in Florida and me and my house in Colorado. You got the difference in, what is time anyway? Well, time is the measurement, the division of a year. What is a year? A year is the amount of time it takes us to make one revolution around the sun. So, if it takes 1 year to go around the sun, and if we have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour. That's why a year is 365.25, I suppose. It really is. It really is. They broke it down to movement. Time is movement and speed. The moon travels 1 mile per second around the Earth, and it travels 432,000 miles a day. Pretty sure. That's pretty good. It's pretty good information if it's true. I do know that. Oh, okay, so check this out. So why were there so many different cultures and so many different takes on ancient history? Like right now, like what we got is this kind of, we've got the Egypt section, we've got the South American section, we've got the Middle Eastern section of history, and they all kind of seem to be independent of each other, but they're really not. They are really branches from the tree that Enki came here, fashioned man with his son and his sister in a lab that they built in Eridu, which is in South Africa, and then Nippur is up in like Iraq, and you got Babylon, which company. But anyway, the point is, the people in Nippur wanted the slave men to help them in their minds, and then, but they couldn't breed the humans fast enough, and Enlil, Enki's brother, was insistent against this experiment because, well, I can only speculate because you don't really get to hear much of his point of view because the book is written by Enki. I did purchase the Lost Book of Enlil off the internet not too long ago, and it is worth about, one slice of toilet paper. I feel insulted that I even bought it. You don't hear anything. I mean, it's just whitewashed crap. It's not, you don't learn anything about Enlil. But he had the opinion that, messing around with nature is kind of not right. And he does have a point, because Enki ended up having a lot of sex with his offspring that were half human or whatever. He had sex with a lot of humans. In fact, if he wouldn't have, we wouldn't exist at all right now. Because the first humans that they made from, the birth women and everything, like, it all worked out great for a while. But as their generations went, they became more and more regressive back towards their Cro-Magnon roots, instead of more and more like the Anunnaki genes that were added to 46 and 2 DNA. So Enki saw this happening, but he still had the demand, I believe, for more, and he wasn't about to just go back to the to a boardroom meeting with all of the big wigs of the Anunnaki world and say, hey, you know what, man, we got a problem, so we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and experiment a little more. So he got in his boat with his boatman named Nudizimud, and he says, Nudizimud, do you see the young ones over there? And Nudizimud says, yes. And he's like, let's go kiss the young ones. And Nudizimud said, yes. Let's go kiss the young ones. Oh my God, look at this big penis on the top of this mountain. Can you see it? This has got to be Erection Rock. So he shows up and there's two women there that are beautiful, and they are charmed at the size of Inky's penis, and he has his way with them, and he pours his seed into their wombs. And then 9 months later, they both, one after the other, squatted, and one gave birth to a woman and one gave birth to a male. And the male he named Adapa, and the female he named Titi. And they became husband and wife, and they knew each other, and their first offspring were twins. It was Cain and Abel. Cain was put under the instruction of Ninurta, the firstborn son of Enlil, a powerful god in his own right, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of years of praises and rituals to Ninurta many years thereafter. So Ninurta, son of Enlil, was in charge of Cain. Marduk, the son of Enki, was in charge of Abel, in order to teach them what they needed to know to cultivate food, because there had never been a lamb. A lamb had never dropped on earth before. And they cultivated the correct formula for cattle on Nibiru, and they brought not only the seeds. Have you ever heard that the seeds of grain that we use, there are 2 seasons per year, and they were, these grains were engineered from Nibiru and brought here at that time, because there were several shar that there was no food on the earth. In fact, there was a time when everyone just had to eat the grass of the field for literally 3,600 years or more. Shars, multiple 3,600 year periods. And this is my favorite part of the story. And the next time you eat next time you eat beef, the next time you see how a farmer treats his animals, just know what it took to get that here. It took many, many thousands of years for them to engineer and bring those genes here and get it going. And Abel was murdered over it. So they needed meat and they needed grain. They needed bread, and they needed to variate their diets. The Anunnaki, to variate their diets, brought the grain, and so therefore Cain was responsible for the ditches and dikes to luxuriate the fields, and Abel was there to tend to shepherd the animals, and they're both difficult jobs in their own right, but I would say that Cain probably had the more difficult of the jobs. Now, there was a festival of firsts, because can you imagine all the effort that it took to get the seeds and the grain back here to earth? Like, they had Dumuzi went on a trip to Nibiru he had only got to go there one time. The king, Anu, Enki's father, wanted desperately to see him. I don't know if desperately was actually said, but he was certainly interested in meeting him and sharing time with him. So Dumuzi did get to spend, I believe it was a full shar on Nibiru, and he was the one that came back with the meat. He came back with the genes for the cattle. So thank Dumuzi. And so once TT and Adapa had Cain and Abel, they, things were going really well, man. Marduk was, spending time with, Marduk and Ninurta were spending a lot of time with these children, because, the future of the Anunnaki and the humans all depended on the success of the cultivation of these foods and the passing down of the knowledge of it as well. So some of that ancient knowledge has still been passed down unto even our current system, but I'm sure that it has been obscured from where it originates. So after the season, the festival of firsts were brought and offerings were placed before the Lord Enki and the Lord Enlil, and Cain offered his offering of grain and bread or whatever it was he made from his from all his effort. And I bet you Abel just knocked everyone's socks off with like some roast lamb or something. So obviously Enki was impressed and couldn't hide his his pride for what Abel had done, and it was more impressive than Cain's. And Cain became very jealous and angry that he didn't receive more of a, that he didn't get more props for the work that he did. And so he beat Abel to death with a stone in the field, and he just stayed there over his brother's dead body. And the first human premonition occurred, that's noted anyway, that TT and Adapa were sleeping in their quarters or their tent or whatever, and TT had a nightmare that something had happened to Abel and Cain, and so they went looking for him right at that moment, and they didn't find him till the sun was up in the field, still just crying over his dead brother. And Adapa said, "Cain, what have you done? What have you done?" And Cain didn't say anything. And after that, Ningus Zeta showed up and altered Cain's DNA to put a mark on him that he shall not grow a beard. And they ushered him off to South America. And all of these South American people are somehow connected to Cain. And an interesting thing is Inca. So in the Incan language, you can rearrange the letters and it still has the same meaning. Inca and Cain. And they don't have beards, do they? Everything this book says is absolutely true. And it will rock your socks. But yeah, I should be getting paid a sponsorship for this, but it's like, that's not the point. I just want you to feel as good as I feel, because there is no substitution for the truth in your heart. There is no substitution for the truth in your heart. You can put what people say is the truth in your heart, and it might feel like satisfaction for a while, but it's not this. It is not this, ladies and gentlemen. there is no substitution for the truth. And when you finally get it, oh baby, it tastes so sweet and it fills you up. Fills you up. Do you remember the first time you ever like went to a nice restaurant? You had like a nice steak and a surf and turf or something, and you tasted and you weren't expecting it to be that tender and that like just melting in your mouth. You're like, damn, like what have we been eating all our lives? Yeah, it's kind of like that, man. Because it you know, you didn't realize there were holes in the story until you hear the original one. That's why I talk about it so much, because of how much it's made me whole. And I have plenty of problems, and I am in no way like advocating for people to just do everything that I do, but I promise you, I know what happened. And on the day that we're all dead, and if we all get a chance to team up again as spirits and remember back when, you'll be like, yeah, dude, you were right, man. You really were right that time. If you were a person that grew up in the church, surely you remember all of the Bible stories. Cain and Abel is a huge one. And in Sunday school, when you're like 5 years old, the Sunday school teacher is just going on and on about Cain and Abel, and I always wanted to know, like, wow, man, I wanted to be there. I wanted to try to stop Cain from doing it to Abel, and I wanted to just see where they brought the offerings, and if I could see God too, like God was there, God's there hanging out, and they're bringing their offerings to Him, and they could see His face and stuff. It's crazy. It's cray. And I had no idea that it was going to tie in. I was reading it. It's going over the history of Nibiru and why all this happened in the first place. Because you really got to start there. Like, the reason why any of them came here in the first place is because of the political bullshit that was happening there, and that their planet was being destroyed, similar to ours. Their atmosphere was depleting. Their planet goes very, very far away from the sun for a very long time, and then as it makes its apogee close to the sun, it hooks back through in between Mars and Jupiter back out towards outer space for another 3,600 year orbit. When they get close to the sun, I imagine, well, it's said in the text that it was becoming too hot and it was hard to bear. And then when they would get further, and then when they got far out, it was too cold, which was also hard to bear. And their atmosphere is what was the insulation. The planet has its own inner warmth, but that inner warmth can't be. There needs to be some kind of insulation, or it'll just, be sucked out in the vacuum. And so these two political parties, one was, they were all about blowing up missiles inside of volcanoes to make the volcanoes belch more smoke for the atmosphere. And you know, if you let's take a moment to think about that. So there are people in this world that if something is going to pay, or there's a job to be had, you know, can you imagine? This is the atmosphere. This is what you live in, shar after shar, 3,600 Earth year after 3,600 Earth year period. This is what you're breathing. This is what's insulating you. You would want to know what gases, what ratio of all the gases are, and what's a stable, proper, balanced, you know. And you know, I can't imagine that belching volcanoes is the formula that you would want to be walking around in for thousands of years as a solution to this problem. But they wanted to raise the money to build all the missiles, and so they had this, you know, huge manufacturing, you know, machine that needed to be, you know, spooled up, and it's ridiculous. I mean, on its face, it's ridiculous. But somehow that is the power that was able to win the political advantage somehow. But the opposition to that, the more reasonable and sane measure to take, was that there was a substance called gold, and on Nibiru was very rare, but on the earth was abundant. The veins, the golden veins of Tiamat, were split open when Nibiru, at the crossing place where they collided all those eons ago, and their waters mingled. And the peculiar thing about this gold is, if you are able to get one electron to fall out of the orbit, or to, you know how the electrons, they, you know, when they power up, they switch orbits and they go to the next highest orbit or whatever. If you can get the gold to lose an electron somehow, that whatever the process is, it becomes a fine white powder called monoatomic gold, which is it has many magical properties that people claim. I've never been able to verify any of them. And do not, under any circumstances, let me forget to bring up Malcolm Bendel. Malcolm Bendel and his thunderstorm generator is, if you are interested in alchemy and transmutation, there is no greater apprenticeship that you can employ yourself in than under Malcolm Bendel. He is the man who has unlocked, and it's just beyond me how it all truly works. But the periodic table is so beautiful, and if you can put it into perspective with all of, you know, you have the, you know, the positive, you know, everything is polarized, you know. Whatever push you have on one side, there's a pull on the other side, you know, whether you see it or not. Everything's balanced, and it can be no other way. You cannot push over here without it pulling over there, and you cannot have a, you know, positive charge over here without a negative balanced charge over there. You can't have something with one electron over here without something with, like, you know, 136 over there or whatever. So And there's this energy levels that, you know, when elements change from one to an, you know, when there's a there's a chemical you know how you can make these, you know, chemical product or chemical reactions happen where you take like one thing and you mix it with another, and then, you know, they start bubbling, and then what you get is something totally different. Well, that has to do with the energy, the electrons, the, you know, the geometry of the, you know, it's just, there's so much going on there. But he's mapped it all out and made a chart that, you know, you can reference and you can see what's on the other side of it. That's what's so cool about it. Like, if you have hydrogen over here, you can see whatever the opposite of it is over there, and how they all interact with each other with their amount of electrons and their amount of protons and neutrons and all that shit, and their atomic weights and that, you know, everything. And there becomes a point where there's something in the middle that is sucking them in and then spitting them back out to start anew again, and that is plasma. And so he found out that, you know, they were making these plasma bubbles in water, and what they noticed is that when they measured it, it was hotter than the sun. So these little explosions would happen in this controlled water environment, and they're super tiny, but the light is, you know, you can see it with the naked eye. I mean, it is, you know, bright little flashes of light that are happening almost like fireflies. But if you really understand what that is doing, it's simply unbelievable what is happening there in that flash. The plasma is able to turn carbon monoxide into oxygen. It's able to turn carbon, or what's the bad poisonous gas from diesel? It's nitrogen dioxide, I think is what it is. Turns that into helium. So he made this like little exhaust configuration that you put on a gas motor, and the plasma bubbles are turning all of the exhaust into perfectly breathable oxygen and helium. And, you know, they put it on a generator that, you know, they can, you know, they had like a big old generator running full blast in a little storage unit, and they had the door closed. They're just standing in there. They've got all their equipment out to measure the air. And not only so, they run it doesn't just take the exhaust and change it into clean exhaust, but it runs it back into the intake of the engine. So it gives it like a 20% increase in efficiency with the fuel. But the best part is just there is no toxic exhaust, which is, you know, pretty fantastic. So back to Inky and Lil, and I'm going to wrap this up as it's getting dark here, and it's a little over an hour here. But Cain kills Abel. Cain goes to South America. The clocks. So why South America? And, you know, so let me tell you a little bit about how they divvied up the earth between Inky and Lil and their sons and their, you know, grandsons and so on and so forth. So Inky has Marduk, he has Nanar, he has I can't remember, he has Gibel, he has several sons, and he has many daughters. There's a lot of Anunnaki kids that were born on Earth that are going to live for tens or hundreds of thousands of years each. They divvy up the Earth, and they use time, not earthly time, but celestial time, to keep track of when it's time for someone to be relieved of their post. Some posts were, coveted. Some posts were not. There was times where, but how did they keep track of them? Well, many of these monolithic structures that, similar to like, what do you call it? Stonehenge, they're clocks, and they are designed to measure the precession of the equinoxes. So the precession of the equinoxes and the zodiac was created by Enki to accurately measure a more palatable frequency of time to those who live for tens of thousands of years. Like this whole day-night thing, this whole days and months, too fast. That's like the second hand for us, pretty much. You know what I mean? And if they were going to tell Marduk how long he was allowed to rule Egypt, instead of saying, I don't know, let's see, how about 36,000 years? They were just like, okay, well, you'll get, so the precession of the equinox is a cycle that the earth does and repeats endlessly. And just as the day is the earth spinning on its axis, and just as the year is the earth spinning around the sun's axis, the complete revolution signifies the completion of the time cycle. So this complete revolution is a wobble that the earth makes, where the North Pole is pointed at I believe if you start off, it's pointed, whatever direction it's pointed in, it takes 25,920 years for it to get back to that same exact point that it was pointing in the beginning. And what happens is, when you're standing on Earth, depending on what continent you're on, the stars, which are at a certain angle, like say a 45-degree angle, I'm not sure, it would depend on what they've determined to be looking at to measure. I'm sure they had different constellations that, like each one of the children of Enki and Enlil the constellations were named after them. Marduk is Leo. Which one is the ram? I think Leo is the ram. Enki is both Aquarius and Pisces. Enlil is the bull, Taurus, and I don't remember what other one he may be. Inanna and Nanar. You know what? Nanar is a son of Enlil. I'm sorry. Because Inanna and her brother Utu they were twins born to Nanar. And Nanar was the moon god, also known as Sin. Not sin like you need to make a sacrifice and be forgiven for and believe in Jesus for, but the original sin, Nanar, the moon god, and the original god of the people who believe in Muhammad. But the zodiac is named after each one, and so Virgo is Inanna and Utu, and so on. But each one of those, so if you divide the zodiac into 12 equal slices, they are 2,160 years each. And that 2,160 years is an age. And after 12 ages, you have the whole cycle, and it starts over again. Well, how do you keep track of that amount of time? Well, you you arrange some monolithic stones that will not be moved throughout that amount of time. And as you gaze through the obvious, however they constructed it to look through, you'll see whatever star you're supposed to see whenever it's time. And that is why there are always these monolithic they're calculators of the moon cycles. Like, they know that the moon has these intrepidations and these 19-day cycles, and these there's a lot, and how one stone circle could have all of these angles and geometries perfectly aligned with astronomical movements is so advanced and so meticulously lit. I mean, they had to have really put some effort into that, and I'm sure they had some Casio calculators and stuff back then to do all the math and stuff for them. But very cool, huh? These things, these monolithic structures. And also, there's always a place in the more ancient palaces and the more ancient temples that on a certain day the sun shines through this one window and lands on this one thing. You know what I mean? On the equinox or whatever. That was their thing, man. They knew when it was time for something cool to happen. And they celebrated that. They love knowing the movements of the celestial bodies. That's the best thing there is ever. And they show up right on time.